Welcome to Friday Night Firelight, presented by Mortal Up. I'm Brian Brody, your host, sponsored by Nutrient Survival at nutrientsurvival.com, and of course, Firebugs at Firebugs, that's BUGGZ.com. Welcome to Friday Night Firelight, presented by Mortal Up. I'm Brian Brody, your host, sponsored by Nutrient Survival at nutrientsurvival.com, and of course, Firebugs at Firebugs, that's BUGGZ.com. Hello, and welcome to another edition, an all-new edition of Friday Night Firelights. So much to get to this evening, all kinds of things to talk about, because we want to walk away from the show. And I want to thank everybody, including our sponsors, Firebugs and Nutrient Survival. We want to walk away from the show that we've prepared for you tonight with the freedom to be ferocious. And when you look at the stress, the anxiety, the depression, all the what's alleged to be a mental illness, when you look at all of it, it all boils down to people forgetting how they naturally are, how they really are. And that is when you need to be, not all the time, not 7 days a week, not 24 hours a day, but in those situations where you need to be, you're going to be ferocious. You have the ability to be ferocious. You're not all watered down. You're not all worried. You think about it. One of the greatest freedoms is the freedom from worry, the freedom from the anxiety that's caused by not knowing how you will handle whatever fate, whatever the future throws at you. And you and I panic, and we know if you panic, you perish. We panic because we forget who we ultimately are. And if all of these months, we're halfway through our opening year of Friday Night Firelights, all of these times spending a few moments staring into the flames, using it as a Rorschach test, if you will, all of those times staring, waiting for the flames to say something back to me, here's what I've come up with. You, at your core, have the ability to handle anything that comes your way. Now, the powers that be, and people want to say, oh, it's big government, it's big this. Andrew Tate says it's the Matrix, it's all these other things. Well, I don't believe that. It's the powers that be, right? It's the Lex Luthors of the world that want all the money, which ultimately all the money means is all the power to control you. But you maintain the freedom to be ferocious. And when you look at the Trojan Horse, that is those that are easily triggered, what do I mean when I say, oh, there's a Trojan Horse? What does it mean? The triggered are using the tactics, the warring tactics outside of Troy from an ancient myth? Yes, they are, because they can't control what their own ears, what their own mind thinks with what they hear. They're hell-bent on making sure they can control their Trojan horse. It's all about power. They want to be able, because they can't control their own sense of self, they want to be able to control the words that come out of your mouth. And that's what all this boils down to. So I'm going to announce here in a little bit, after a quick thank you to our sponsors, I'm going to announce the Ableist, Ableist, and I think Wayne is probably already hooked it up. If you get a chance, go to theableist.com. You're in for a little surprise. But I think ultimately I've just had enough. So I wanted to find a term. Let's do this. Let me thank our sponsors. Thank you so much, Nutrient Survival. Boy, you talk about the freedom from worry. If you're worried about what the future will throw at you and you go, oh, wow, food is high up on the things of the list, that in an emergency situation, what will I do? Thanks to Nutrient Survival, you can check that thing right off your list. As I say, never settle, never surrender, never stress. Nutrient Survival. They'll be there for you. They've got you covered when you and your family are going to need them most. And of course, Firebugs. Look, I've said it before about Firebugs, buggz.com. Head on over, check out their full line of all the cool things they've got going on. But as an emergency, as a survival expert, all these years I've been doing it a long time. The ability to start a fire, a controlled fire in such a way so you can boil water, you can fix your food, you can help tamp down the anxiety. I mean, how stressful can kids really be when you're offering them a s'mores? That's all I'm saying. One of the things I love, yes, there's the day in and day out of Firebugs, which is why I call it Firebugs Fun. But there's also in those emergency situations where you're going to need a fallback plan. Firebugs is the perfect fallback plan. Believe me, it most certainly is for me and my family. All right, let's get back to this. Let's talk about the Triggered's Trojan Horse. As you know, I call, I think maybe other people, the mainstream, the Michigan media, calls it DEI. I call them IEDs because that's what they are. They're blowing up our kids' future. Any shot that our kids have of a rational, an intellectual. You want to talk about being at the lower echelon of the intellectual, the lower end of the intellectual pool, if not echelon. I guess an echelon would imply there's some kind of vertical movement, but right, the lower end of the intellectual pool. Then you've got to talk about the belief that something is mercurial, something that you had no control over, by the way, as the color of your skin dictates the content of your spine. Now, you got a lot of these bubble wrap brains, speaking of spines, balsa wood spines, running around going, oh, well, I'm offended by that, or you can't. I saw something today where Maybelline, a makeup company owned by L'Oreal, Maybelline is using some guy balder than me, is using some bald guy with a full-on beard, not to mention a pretty girthy, hefty guy, to model their lipstick for Amazon Prime Day. Really, Maybelline? Maybe he was born with it. Really? That's what you're going to contribute to. When we talk about contributing to the delinquency of a minor, when we talk about endangering the welfare of the child, if these people, look, I'm all over. You have the right to live your life as a Looney Tune in any way that you see fit. But when you reach outside of the confines of your mirror, and you expect other people's actions to validate what you think about yourself, that's where we got to draw the line. And that's what the Triggered are all about. They're doing more and more and more and more and more of the craziness to simply get your goat, to get your attention, because they can't give themselves attention, so they have to look for it outwardly. And ultimately, it all comes down to power. Think about it. In what scenario would it make sense for an individual unable to control their own ears, but they want to manipulate your mouth? They want to say in the words that you say, which is the absolute opposite of the freedom of ferocious. All right, so let's get back to this. Probably would have been a real good idea to reach out to the sponsors in advance. It's been a hell of a 3 months around here. I don't want to get into it now, but just a lot. Maybe sometime we'll talk about it, right? But who I say all the time, Irish luck, do not believe the hype, right? That's what I say. You've heard me say that before. Quite possibly is popular a term of mine, as I said earlier, brittle brains atop balsa wood spines. Or the war on wuss. That's another one of my favorites, got to tell you. So what could I do to hit the hornet's nest with a stick? What could I do to poke the female grizzly bear with cubs? What could I do to throw myself in the debate to show other people that we really can survive the onslaught of all these brainiacs. We really can survive them being offended, mortally wounded, them being injured. Words are weapons. There's so much pain. Was nut running around from the female soccer star with the green hair that did the thing for the television commercials for Subway, I believe it was, saying, well, that causes transgender people a lot of pain. Bullshit. It causes you the pain that you let in. It's like accepting a package from UPS or FedEx. If you don't accept the package, if you don't answer the ringing doorbell, if you don't sign for it, right, then the package isn't yours. How can you be mortally wounded by the words of another if you're an adult, if you have a brain that's grown out of a child's mind? Don't know how that could happen. In any event, to be able to go, look, you want to pick a fight? I'm here. You want a war on us? Let's do this. We're going to launch the Ableist. Now, when you think of ableism, you think of, oh, well, I'm offended because people with the ability to do everything that they do make fun of handicapped people. That's bullshit. I don't believe it. I've got to tell you. So we went ahead and we'll be launching today. It's just you buy a website, right? And then you write some copy. But the tagline is the freedom to be ferocious. So we're the ableists because I believe regardless of your physical structure, regardless of whatever may have happened to you, whether you were born that way, whether fate was able to dictate that this is something that was going to happen to you while you were running the table of life, I don't think that interferes at all with your ability to be able to do anything you set your mind to. So I had to think of a word. I wanted to think of a term. And it seems, my belief that if you can't do a push-up, you can't do a pull-up, you don't need antidepressant drugs. You need to spend a little bit of time maybe jogging around to the end of the driveway to get your mail and come back. And there are countless news stories. Just since I spoke to you all last, countless maybe, that's a little hyperbole. Let's say 4 news stories that I've found in the last 6 days that have basically said one of the best ways to buffer Alzheimer's, one of the best ways. I remember my pop said to me, 55 some odd years ago, maybe more than 55 years ago. And Jesus increased in wisdom and in stature and in favor with God and man. Now, if you don't want to take the religious connotation, you're welcome not to. For me, it just means that the perfect human construct is body and mind, wisdom and stature. And now you see the report in neuroscience that says that's a great way to buffer Alzheimer's. That's a great way to beat back the aging effects, is having a strong body and a strong mind. There's another report out that says, hey, just walking 20 minutes a day. You talk about a 20-minute victory. Walking just 20 minutes a day will be hugely beneficial, both to your wisdom and your stature, that your brain and your body are the same organ, if you will, and that they are intimately ready for the brawl. When we talk about out-brutal the brutal, right? When we talk about squaring your shoulders with come what may, it's because it's good for you mentally and physically. So all these things, antidepressants. And another, I got to tell you this other article that I came across, a couple different authors from two different articles, two different authors, but they settled on the same point, going that you're a white supremacist, which is odd given the number of athletes that aren't white, but you're a white supremacist and you're alt-right, ultra-conservative if you suggest, well, geez, maybe Andrew Tate is getting beat up now for certain. And what did he say? How did he buffer in all the trouble he's under now? How did he buffer some of the depression? He did push-ups. Everybody's busy giving RFK a hard time because he was. Ever been to Muscle Beach? It's a little much for me. I get, as you could tell, I was outside today for a run and a bike. I get sunburned like that, so I stay away from Muscle Beach. But I do love Venice. Glass Boot, Das Boot, having a beer, watching the sunset at Das Boot, absolutely unbelievable. And if you've never been, they actually serve beers in a glass boot, so you drink right out of the boot. Love that place. Love Venice Beach in California. But one of the things that he's getting in trouble for is he happened to be doing some push-ups, happened to be doing some bench presses, happened to take his shirt off. Then you think, wait a minute, they're giving Andrew Tate all kinds of crap for it. They're giving RFK all kinds of crap for it. Joe Rogan's got to be in the best shape of, damn near 1% of the human beings on the planet. He gets a bunch of bunk for it all the time. So we're the ones that are crazy because we want to be able to have a strong mind and a strong body. Now, admittedly, I get in trouble from time to time because I said, look, if you really want to benefit yourself, be able to do a push-up, be able to do a pull-up, be able to, run to the mailbox at the end of the driveway and run back or take in a flight of stairs. Why? Because do I care if you're an athlete? No. Am I an athlete? I doubt it very seriously. But here's what I am confident of, is that I have the ability to work both my mind and body with the concept of out-brutal the brutal. Now, whether the brutal comes in a 10K run, or the brutal comes in being able to take the onslaught. What did Billy Shakespeare say? Suffer the slings and arrows. If out-brutal the brutal means you got to take incoming vitriol from other people and go, yeah, it bounces right off. Oh, I was hit. Nah, it hit the plate. I'm good. I'm not sure if it stung a little bit. It may have, but it hit the plate. I'm good. It's not going to bring me down. So when it came to structuring the ableist, I had to figure out, what am I going to do to get the mainstream media to attack me? And that's what the term ableist. Because ableism means, you're making fun of people that aren't, well, I would dare say, given 5 brain surgeries, a brain tumor, the cancers, all the other PTSD, everything else I've gone through, I'm the last person in the world you'd go, he's in perfect health. Good God, he runs a 10K in well under an hour. He can do 100. He can pull-ups like they're going blah, 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 blah. There's still something wrong with me. You've been following me at all, whether you know that. All I'm simply saying is the ableist is where I'm going to draw the line in the sand and saying we're all able of anything we set our mind, our heart, and our backside to. That it really is about grit. It really is about resilience. And it scares leftists. I don't want to say all Democrats, because some great Democrats, but leftists. It scares them to death. Because here's a conspiracy for you. I think somebody in the far left, maybe in the government, who knows, the powers that be, I think they've met with aliens. I think a spaceship landed, aliens hopped out, the meatballs for dinner were great. Aliens hopped out and they said, we got to corral these people. And they go, the only way we can get to corral them is to get them to turn a blind eye, a deaf ear, to turn their backs on their natural resources, their own capabilities. All we can do is to break them down and get them to forget their own ferociousness. So if I'm wrong, and we've talked about this before, give me 20 minutes, 1/72nd of your day to go, yeah, you know what, I'll try this out. Maybe I can only do a quarter sit-up or a quarter push-up, or maybe I can only walk to the mailbox and jog back, or maybe I very slowly climb a couple stairs. But see if that doesn't help rekindle in you a belief of who you ultimately are. Because in your family tree, it's full of badasses, and you're a badass. You just may have forgotten about it. So the ableist is my siren's call, if you will, to bring the media in and to bring those folks that are willing to be triggered. We're so offended by Brian's words. The pain. We're so triggered. We're mortally wounded. And as I've asked before, where's the wound? Where's the puncture wound? Where are you cut? And I think the best thing that we can do for our children to secure their future, our grandchildren, our nieces and nephews, if you don't have any, the best thing we can do to secure the future for our families is to, from time to time, not all the time, right? You hear all this time about toxic masculinity. I don't think it's toxic masculinity. I think it's toxic sensitivity. And because you got guys like Joe Rogan and RFK, who's another one, you got guys like Tate, you got these people that are in great shape. They don't put up with crap from anybody. And that's why they're being attacked, because they want you to tolerate the crap, because it's easier to manipulate you if you do. If you tolerate all of their mashugana, it waters you down. So from time to time, I'm not talking about walking around, whatever. I'm just saying from time to time, let some of your ferociousness out. Draw your line in the sand. Figure out where you're going to say enough is enough, as I have. And know that you are able to stand up for yourself, for your family, for your loved ones, for your friends, for your neighbors. It's in you to stand up to anyone trying to water them down. And if there is a thing that I've learned from staring into these flames, as I started off, my own personal Rorschach test of looking into the fire for Friday Night Firelights, it's been just that. It's been that ability to rekindle. And you go, yeah, I'm not going to be pushed around. I'm not going to be watered down. I'm not going to be manipulated. I'm not going to be controlled. They can use any Trojan horse they want. But who is someone that gets to dictate the words that come out of your mouth? Think about that for a second. I mean, your mouth's front and center. Thinking your words are kind of important, right? But we're not allowed to have, like, secondhand cigarette smoke. Oh, he just says it. It's toxic. It's toxic. I've got lung cancer. I'm telling you, I can barely breathe. Think about it for a moment. Is that the life you want for the rest of your days here? Is that the life that you want for future generations of family and friends and offspring? The freedom to be ferocious means the freedom to stand up to yourself and stop putting up with all the BS, all the mashugana coming from those people that are trying to use it as a Trojan horse because they have zero ability to cultivate their own personal power. They are absolutely thrilled to be conquering your personal power. All right, thank you so very much for staying with us tonight. As you know, speaking of 20-minute victories, trying to keep these 20-minute victories, keep the shows down to 20 minutes. So that's what we're going to do. But before we leave, as you know, all the time, I'm excited to see what the flames, I'm excited for you to look and see what the flames, oh, look at that. See what the flames have to say to you. Good night, everybody.